All right, what's up, guys? Four Corners back with episode 105. Two-man game today. I am one of your hosts, Ray. You can find me online at Ray Von Hackshaw. Also joined by Peter Buckets since '88. How are you enjoying the New Orleans winter?
Pretty good. Did my first leave raking session. Had a good Thanksgiving break. I know it's been a while since we've been on, so it's good to take a break, recharge your batteries. But still watching the Nuggets, and they, if we're being honest, Ray, they took a little bit of break too, right? That that last road trip, they kind of maybe didn't go as hard as they could have, but the Nuggets look like they're back in the swing of things now.
Yeah, I mean, look, times get tight for everyone sometimes, and you just got to get through it. And I think they
Yeah.
generally have, especially when we're talking about like that absence of Jamal Murray and how they coped with that or didn't at times. But yeah, no, good to hear from you. It's good to be back in chat nuggets. Um, let's jump into it. I think we can. I kind of want to start. So Nikola Jokic in the last week or so has announced a shoe deal as well as his hotel commercials with Peyton Watson. Do you feel like he's coming around any kind of a bend as far as being more accepted and presented by the league as like a face of it, as a household name, as somebody who is, I don't know, just someone the league realizes people want to see?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I mean, I think Jokic has a pretty clean track record for the most part, so it's like I don't think there's really a reason why you wouldn't want to market him. Um, I guess obviously the one thing I don't know is how much is like people pushing him, agents and friends or whatever to be like, "Hey man, you should really do this," and he's like, "Ah, fine, all right," or if he's like actually interested in it. That's not really something we'll know. I think until there's more, because we saw the commercial the other day and thought it was pretty solid, and it'll get some run, but then it's like other brands, I'm not in the marketing world, so I don't know how they're going to view it. If they're going to say, oh, he's pretty good, like let's get him more, or they're going to be like, whatever. Like I feel like that's more of an opinion thing than it is like a definitive this guy's good or bad at commercials. So
Mm.
to be determined is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the ratings or how they read those was gonna look like, or even I'm curious to see how the shoe sales go. I'm kind of interested myself. I've never really worn that brand, but I know they do have like the AG4s, the shoes Aaron Gordon wears right now on their website for sale. So I might give those a try, see how it is. Listen to some reviews online, and they seem decent for certain players. A lot of cushioning, kind of a strong. It's not a minimalist shoe,
I'll,
but
I'll
it
be honest, I'm
seems.
not real familiar with the shoe or with the brand. It's called 351, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, maybe we can take a second to take a look at the picture later, but yeah, Aaron Gordon wears them right now. They're
Okay.
not crazy expensive. They seem decent per the reviews I've seen, but I'll be curious to give them a try, and maybe I'll come back with my own feedback as well. Um,
Ray,
or is it
do you have any idea if it's like a newer company or is it just not as known because they're Chinese?
so it's not totally new in the
Okay.
sense that I think they've worked with other players as well in the league. It's I'm sure it's much newer than say like a conventional brand like a Nike or a Adidas or something like that. But
Okay.
they just seem to be trying to like make their way into the market.
All right.
They don't just sell basketball shoes either. They also sell like running shoes. So like Spencer Dinwiddie is signed with them, has a shoe coming out as well, along
Oh,
with
cool.
the Aaron Gordon series in his shoe line.
Nice.
Yeah. So Peyton Watson, were you surprised that he was like the guy to come along with Jokic in a commercial like that?
A little bit. Um, I think that when a role player is in a commercial, it can throw you off guard, but at the same time, I think it's like when a lesser known guy is in there with a star, it kind of like lets the star shine brighter. So it's like in our head, a Jokic Murray commercial might make sense, but then it's like Jamal is way closer to Jokic's level than Peyton Watson is, right? So like people are going to view this as the Jokic commercial, whereas like Jamal has other commercials. You know, he's in the New Balance. He's basically like New Balance's lead man. I mean, some people could say Kawhi, but like the last one, Jamal talks and Kawhi doesn't. So it's like I don't know who New Balance would view as their main guy because like Kawhi's been hurt so much. I don't think they really like have that much faith in him anymore. But no, I think it was cool for Peyton. I think Peyton's a pretty, charismatic, outgoing guy. He's from LA, so it's like I'm sure he's like been around a lot of agents and actors kind of like his whole life growing up to an extent. And he seemed fine and he seemed pretty natural. So, it's cool for him, cool moment.
I find it interesting because I feel like on multiple levels at this point, Peyton seems to be working his way deeper into the long-term plans of the team and how he's like, of course, we have the core four, right? But talking about what the future is, um, if there's a guy I could pencil in as like the next man up in terms of who can break into what might be the top five or the top four grouping of what the Denver Nuggets will be, I kind of see Peyton Watson as that guy, both in like the floor and the ceiling that he's showing right now, and the marketing.
Yeah, I mean he's had a nice little stretch recently. Um, I don't know if he's fully in Malone's circle of trust yet. Probably not, but like I mean, if he's playing bad, he's like still low enough on it that he could get yanked. But I think it's
Hmm.
early enough in the season still to where he's going to keep getting run just to like sort of keep playing through it, mistakes, and get better because the bench has been up and down this year. It's been better than last year, which has been nice. But I think the main thing that they're missing is just that consistency. Because if you look at the Nuggets record, it's not bad, 19-10. But I do feel like there's just been a handful of like close losses this year where if like Strother and Watson would have just played decent, the Nuggets pull it out. But they've had some real stinkers this year. So the highs are encouraging. But the thing I'm really looking for, Ray, is for those two guys specifically to just have less horrible games. Like it's okay if you're below average, but stop having like Strother will have a game where he'll hit like 4 or 5 threes, and then he like will go 0 for 6. It's gonna
Hmm.
happen. He's a rookie, but we need him to get to that point of just hitting like at least one or two and not go over. The over nights really kill your bench minutes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I'm generally happy with that. The trio of Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther as really flexible. You've got a lot of wing options, I guess, guys between
Yeah.
1 and 5 who can shoot a little bit, defend some to varying degrees. Obviously, Peyton and Christian are defending more than Julian, but I think even Julian has displayed some. Uh, the word that always comes to mind is verticality, like the Roy Hibbert isms, where he has these moments where he can meet guys at the rim surprisingly well, even if he can't always. I still think he's not the quickest footed guy on
Right.
either end of the ball, but I think he's using his length well. And when you put him next to those guys, I think it kind of works. I kind of, even though you're right, they have struggled, especially without Jamal. Not to say that Jamal's always with them, but when Jamal's out, Reggie's with the starters, and kind of that backfill of point guarding looks a little bit different when you get to Colin and Jalen Pickett. So I put it a little more on, I guess, Jamal's absence and the downstream effects of that on the roster. Even though Zeke has picked it up a little bit recently, and DeAndre has looked good in certain stretches. I think just that dynamic and how tenuous it is on those ends is the thing that has, I guess, shined the most to me in this, like, I don't want to say rough patch, but patch of okayness.
Well, the thing that's been the most encouraging to me, Ray, about the bench is I feel like they're starting to form an identity, right? We talked
Mm.
about going into the year how we were hoping that like they might not be great offensively, but we think that they're going to be pretty long and young and athletic. Hopefully they can be a good defensive team and run. That's kind of played out the way I hoped a little bit, but I just think that they're starting to get more comfortable, not just because of reps and more minutes, but like learning each other stylistically. You know, like you said, Jamal coming back, it lets Reggie go to the bench and have that clean rotation if they know when they're going to play. And I really think they're starting to build some continuity. And you know, the key there for me is like whether they have a good stretch or not. I think the process is starting to get pretty good. It's starting to be like pretty consistent. So you're going to have times when you miss shots, but it's like for the most part, I think everybody on the bench plays within themselves. You know, sometimes I think people might think Strother has a little bit of a quick trigger, but to me, he's a good enough shooter to where if he's open, like let it fly, man. I'm sure that's what the coaching staff has told him. Like, hey, you're in there to shoot. You know, and I think Watson's done a good job of being aggressive. You know, he's been hitting a few more threes lately when he's open. I like it, and I mean, his defense has just been on point. You know, Peyton Watson, he's so long and athletic that he gets his hands on so many balls, like basketballs.
I know
and
what you mean.
yeah, it's fun to watch. You know, we haven't had a lot of like those type of guys in like Nuggets fandom in the last like 20 years, guys that are just so long and athletic that can like swallow you up defensively.
Yeah, I would say he's the first guy I've. He's definitely the closest to like an all defensive team since maybe like Gary Harris or even like Marcus Camby. When I think
Yeah.
about guys who are really that, who have just the whole package, the athleticism, the quickness, the speed, but also like the length
Right.
and the size and the strength. He's like a tiny Giannis, a little bit.
I
I'm not
guess
saying
I
he.
guess we had Iguodala for that one season, but
Oh yeah, I forgot. I've wiped him from my soul. But yeah, he was that. I'm
yeah.
not gonna lie. He just I hate that guy. But it's fine. It's fine. No, you're right
But
though.
Ray, isn't it cool because you've mentioned years ago about how you love length and you love cumulative length, and I think that's really borne out with Strother and Brown and Watson. Is like Peyton Watson is cool, but if he was playing next to like Facu, it's kind of a waste, right? But being able to have this many wings that are interchangeable, it can really like make it tough for the other team to score. You know, kind of like I brought up Iguodala. Wilson Chandler was another guy who was like pretty long and athletic. You know,
Hmm.
but even he isn't as quick as like Peyton Watson. You know, Peyton Watson's ability to recover and to help is like that's one of the reasons he gets so many blocks. Like great instincts, but also just great hustle.
Yeah, yeah, and I think especially when you add Zeke into that equation, not that Zeke always has the best games or makes his layups or whatever. Sometimes the stat line doesn't always look pretty, but there's just a bunch of really fast, long, athletic guys, and I think that makes it really difficult on opposing offenses, especially bench offenses. So on the other end as well, I feel like every one of those guys is a threat at the rim. Um, Zeke circles with that, but that's about it. I think Peyton, Christian, Julian always are very, I think, consistent finishers, whether it's Julian's floater that he has, or I think Peyton and Christian's ability to attack the rim outright. So I think that's been very healthy for them. And yeah, the process has been a lot better, I think. And when I look back at what is most frustrating for Jokic, especially in that time without Jamal, I think it was most frustrating for him when the process was not what he likes. It's not to say that he hates or he's unwilling to adapt to bad process, but I think it just becomes stressful for him when there's whether it's what he has to do or guys around him not um, being able to play the right way because of their own decisions or for bad spacing reasons or whatever it might be. So
Oh yeah.
uptrend, like just general trending up. I feel like I'm pretty optimistic about what they can do in the back half of the season. I know we're not at the halfway mark of the season, but I think especially down the stretch we could see like some long runs of knock on wood, assuming everyone is relatively healthy. Some really strong play down the stretch and a push for a higher seed than they have now.
Well, it's interesting that you just brought up Jokic, being frustrated with the way they played at times. I think we have to give Jokic credit in that he's shown a lot of growth maturity wise, because if you remember, 2, 3, 4 years ago, his body language used to get really bad with Michael Porter, right? Because he was like still learning. He didn't always know where to be. He didn't always take the best shots. And we've always, praised Mike on the show for just his level of stick with itness of like, learning and getting better, and how you're not going to go from like rookie to, solid contributor overnight. It's going to take time, going to take reps. And he's really, put the work in to get there. And I think Jokic made a comment earlier this year about, it was something like, well, they waited 8 years for me to get good, so I don't mind waiting a little bit for these guys. So I think that Jokic is smart enough to know, like, hey, I can't always like be mad and give dirty looks about like a rookie making a mistake. I need to understand that we're going to make mistakes, but these guys need the reps to get better so that, I have them when I need them. And he's really done a good job of like taking guys under his wing this year and, teaching them stuff, and I think that was a valuable thing that we had on the team last year with Jeff Green and Ish Smith and DeAndre is still here. And I think that's part that goes like super unnoticed, is how much DeAndre is also in like Zeke's ear and all the young guys and helping them. And I think Jokic has finally, I think DeAndre actually helped Jokic just from like watching that, not saying he taught him anything about basketball, but I think Jokic finally realizes like, hey, I can't just go out and dominate every night. That's not good enough. I actually have to be a leader too and like help everybody else. And he's doing it. I think Harrison Wind had like an amazing article a few weeks ago about how like all this like incredible stuff Jokic was doing, like calling out other teams' plays and just, seeing stuff before it happens basically. And I think it's so cool because when you're a two-time MVP, your teammates are going to listen to you. And so I've really enjoyed Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and Strother kind of like looking up to Jokic and Murray and being like, you know what, these guys have done it at the highest level. And, if we listen to them, we can help, and we can also, maybe stick in the league for a long time.
Yeah, it is nice. And I feel a lot of what you're saying, especially I think when even on the court, when DJ kind of got an opportunity to play a little bit more, it became really evident how much he has the ear of a lot of the other players on the floor, about how he can also kind of, obviously he's not Jokic, but he
Yeah.
can do a little bit of his own directing of traffic, of being a calming presence, of being that kind of stabilizing factor, whether it's on the boards or as a passer or as a screener or as a roller. And that's, I think that buoying the team without totally dislodging Zeke's like confidence and sort of focus and his buy-in to the team, I think is it's really impressed me. I think in the way that they've managed to thread that needle, because I think it could be very easy to we could have written off Zeke entirely, as a team. No, the Nuggets could have, and kind of broken the toy that we were hoping was going to be great. So and then kind of been stuck in a place where we need DJ to play every night, and I think that would be a little bit more tough. So I'm pretty impressed with just the general no issues team dynamic that they have. I think up and down the roster, I think everybody is locked into this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, you bring up Zeke. I think one thing that's really encouraging is, he's been up and down. I think if we're being honest, he's been more down than up, but he had a good game the other day, and Malone shouted him up post game. And I think that's hugely critical. I mean, I know you could make, a naysayer could say like, well, they have to make it work. They just signed him. It's like, yeah, that's true. But I think Malone really does appreciate Zeke's, professional attitude of how he's always ready. He's always cheering on his teammates. He always has a good attitude. And I think, I don't know if they've had this conversation, but the vibe I'm getting now from Malone is like, he's going to play Zeke. If things go bad, I'm going to pull you, but it doesn't mean like I'm mad at you or don't like you. It just means maybe this isn't the right matchup. And like, there's going to be nights where you play, there's going to be nights where DJ plays, and you're both just a part of the team. Like, this is how it's going to be. And so I think it's really, it would have been a lot easier. We've seen a lot of other players in Zeke's position, if they're not playing well, start to pout or start to doubt themselves. And I don't feel like he's really done that. Like, if he has a bad stint, I feel like he still comes back in the next stint and plays just as hard, if not harder. So, his attitude has been excellent, and it's finally paid off with a couple of good stretches recently. And I think being on the Nuggets, having a coach that believes in you and having a bunch of other players that also appreciate your work ethic and your attitude has really helped too. Because I think we've seen on other teams where if a guy isn't playing well, maybe he's getting the side eye or like it could cause problems. So I think, we want Zeke to do well. We want him to play better. And luckily he's in an environment where everybody else wants him to succeed too.
Yeah, it's a good way to keep your players, engaged and happy. And so I think, especially when you compare it to, I think about the Suns over the last couple of years with DeAndre Ayton as a guy who I
The
think
polar
maybe they,
opposite.
in some ways, yeah, where they have a similar. I think he and Zeke have a similar like demeanor about them, a sort of like I'm not saying that they don't have feelings or emotions or express themselves, but they can be a little bit stoic at times. And, I think the Suns treated DeAndre one way, and I think the Nuggets treated Zeke another way. I think that kind of has a level of, even if Zeke, let's be honest, at times he's been pretty terrible. Um,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean we're giving up on him. And that doesn't mean that we're going to give him undue credit or praise or presumptive growth. We're not assuming that he's going to do anything. But yeah, they've just managed to keep him even keel in everything. So um, I still think they could use another center option in
Yeah.
the future, but for being the biggest weakness of the team, in my opinion, I think they've handled that situation really well. So,
Oh
speaking
yeah.
of the Suns, um, I feel like I have a countercultural opinion about the Suns, just based
Oh
on
really?
how, yeah, just the general community sentiment. I feel like they're going to be fine. I
Hmm.
know that they have struggled a lot with chemistry with guys playing consistently, obviously because they're not healthy and because their teams are very top loaded. But at the same time, they are. I don't want to presume that they're going to be great because of their talent,
Uh-huh.
and to that degree, I don't. I'm not putting them as a lock to beat the Nuggets or anything like that. But at the same time, they are so talented that we're still talking about Devin Booker and Kevin Durant as a 1-2, which I think is still up there with the best tandems in the league, even though they're not really a tandem, but just talent wise, two
Right.
players you can have lead a team. Um,
Oh yeah.
and to have, the rest of that squad behind them, I think Is it ideal? Probably not. But I think they are a lot of what you need to win a championship. And if they are firing on all cylinders at a certain point down the stretch, I think it's going to take more than Denver's bare minimum to beat them. So I think they do still need to take them seriously.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. I mean, they're definitely a threat. They have a lot of firepower. And the key phrase you said, firing on all cylinders. If the Suns are firing on all cylinders, they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody in a series. But their defense is so bad that they really have like less room for error than the other contenders, in my opinion. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
to win a playoff series, you really need Booker and KD to be on like 4 out of 7 times together, which is doable. We've seen it before. Like they were on fire in games 3 and 4 against us last year. But I just don't know if that team trusts each other, Ray. They just don't look like a cohesive unit. Most of their wins are still just like either they beat a bad team or like Eric Gordon got hot. I don't think they really have like I don't think they would tell you they're a good team right now. I think they would say like they can play a lot better, which I think they can. I just hope they don't.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think they probably aren't satisfied with how they're playing. I think everyone can see the clear criticisms, especially defensively, but um, the ability to lock in specific moments and at specific times, I think is one of the core sort of benefits that people look for in veteran teams. And looking at those guys, they are veterans in the league, so I think that's what they're aiming for, is that over time and down the stretch that they could kind of pull together when they need to, even if it's just for a quarter here or a quarter there defensively. I think in their minds that's probably enough, and we'll see. Still, again, not putting them over Denver personally, uh, but I wouldn't write them off. I'm not writing them off yet. Yeah. Do you have any
Well, that's
other?
fair, and I think well, if we're getting into the landscape of the West conversation now, I would say like the Suns have kind of sneakily flown under the radar with how mid they've been because the Warriors have been even worse. And now they've got this whole Draymond suspension over their heads, and the team just looks. I'm not going to say broken, but they're definitely small. And like whatever happened to Andrew Wiggins is just kind of mind boggling because he was so good for them 2 years ago. He was arguably the second best player on their championship team 2 years ago, and he's just been atrocious this season. So it's kind of wild. Like if you would have told me Steph Curry's numbers, where would the Warriors be on like today's what December 21st? I'd say they'd probably be like anywhere from like 3 to 7 games over 500, and I think they're what they're like 4 or 5 games under. Yeah, well, okay, they're 13 and 14, so it's not a disaster, but they've also been pretty mid. So I'm not gonna bury them either. But the Warriors are, if nothing changes, they're not gonna be a threat either.
Yeah. I think this also kind of gets to my general feeling about the landscape. When you're talking about the landscape, not just of the West, but of the league, I think this points
Mhm.
to, for me, the West is really good. When we're talking about, yes, this Golden
Yeah.
State Warriors team is very much astray, and sitting at 11th in the conference, but at 11th in the conference, we're talking about a Steph Curry who is performing almost as well as he's ever been, especially for a guy, going into that mid 30s age range. Um, that right beneath them are, the Utah Jazz. They have their dignity. I'm not saying they're good. I think they should blow it up. They should trade Kelly Olynyk to some, contending team. But we look over across the pond, and who is 11th in the East? We're talking about the Chicago Bulls, a bit of a dumpster fire. Kind of,
Oof.
I know, a team that almost looks better without their highest paid player. And I think that is intrinsically just kind of like I would describe it as three flaming trash cans rolling down the street, um,
I mean, they've
tied
been playing better
together.
lately, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's real.
I think it's real for certain players. It's just
Sure.
who's the player it's not real for. I think there is a very core facet to the biggest. Why are they looking better without this guy? I
Well,
think
I
that's kind
mean,
of a
yeah,
thing.
no, that for sure. I think Kobe White has had a nice season. He's kind of having like a mini breakout, mini leap here,
Hmm.
which has been real nice for them. The thing that's really tough for them is the Patrick Williams pick just looks like it's going to go down as a disaster. I mean, they took him fourth overall 3, 4 years ago, and he just doesn't look like a good NBA player. And they re-signed Vucevic, which is like he's fine, but is he really a guy you want to pay like 20 million a year to be your starting center? I don't know. It just yeah, the Bulls are going nowhere.
And then, yeah, at the top of that chart, you have Zach Levine, who I think it's not just that Zach Levine isn't good, but his skill set, talking about a guy who he can score, but isn't really a rebounder or a defender or a playmaker, especially as an
Right.
off-ball guard, and that's usually how those players end up there in today's NBA is that they're off-ball guards because they can't do a lot else. Where the Devin Bookers of the world, the Jamal Murrays of the world, guys who maybe they came in the league as twos, they're point guards now because they do have a little bit more of that flexibility. Um, it's hard to pretend they're going anywhere with that. I do think they could get a lot of value out of some of the guys that they have. I think DeMar DeRozan is still a guy who can be an offensive hub, and I think that just means a lot for whatever team is going to pick him up that might, you know, be able to afford him. Um, and obviously they have Alex Caruso, so that's
Yeah.
I don't really. He seems like the guy who's going to go for like how much at the deadline, and I don't totally understand it. Like I don't. I wouldn't. I'm not saying he's bad. That's not what I'm saying. Just to be clear, but I wouldn't trade if you're a team like the Nuggets who is feeling comfortable with yourselves and relatively complete. I don't see the value in going out and giving up a bunch of future value for a guy who does what a lot of your role players already do. That's just me. I don't know. Hopefully they
Yeah,
move
no, I
on.
don't I wouldn't trade for Caruso because you'd have to give up a pretty good piece to get him. But let's take a look at the top of the West. Let's see how we think the Nuggets are doing comparative to everybody else. So right now
The actual good teams.
Min- we got Minnesota in first place. They're 20-6. They're playing great. 11-1 at home, 9-5 on the road. Plus 6.8 point differential. They're only giving up 106.7 points per game. They did just lose to Philadelphia last night, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. What have you seen from the Wolves this year? What's impressed you? And does the NBA owe Tim Connolly an apology because he was getting roasted for that Gobert trade a couple summers ago?
The world does not want to do this, but the world owes Rudy Gobert an apology. I think, and Tim Connolly to some extent as well. Um, this move, I think, ultimately, has put them in the lane that I think is strongest in the NBA right now, which is to have um, size. That they have, at multiple positions, and Anthony Edwards is, I think, also a big part of that. As maybe one of the biggest like lead ball handler type guys in the league who can handle those duties. Maybe next to Luka Doncic. So yeah, I mean, shout outs to them. I think I still think they have limitations, but when it comes to
Right.
winning a lot of games in the regular season, I think they'll be able to do that. And it's really, I think it's really up to the growth of Carl Anthony Towns, and I think especially Carl Anthony Towns. Maybe not growth, but can he be his best self in the playoffs? I think that's going to be the biggest factor
Right.
for what they can do at that
Big question.
level.
Yeah.
Just because Rudy Gobert is, I think he's done a great job with their, with their, obviously defensively, he is who he is, and even offensively, I think has made himself serviceable. Um, but Cat needs to be like, he needs to match at least another team's second option for them to be good. I think in playoff competitive is what I'll say. So OKC, I think also kind of fits in the same a similar bucket for me as a team. Do you have any? Sorry, I didn't want to move on from them, but any thoughts about the Wolves?
Yeah. I mean, they. I thought they'd be good this year. They've been even better than I expected. I mean,
Mhm.
I always will admit on this show when I've been wrong, but the Timberwolves have had a fascinating arc the last couple of years because if you remember, I was like super for the trade when they made it. I was like, you know what, this is bold, this is daring. I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to match up with Jokic. He's trying to go big. And then last year it didn't really work. I mean, Cat was hurt a lot of the year. Rudy didn't play that well. Ant still wasn't really ready. And then this summer, Ant going to Team USA and having that experience and kind of being the guy there, that really helped. He's kind of taken a mini leap. And I just think that, in general, like overall basketball philosophy, I have to say that only one team is going to win the championship, right? And I think Tim Connolly, having all those years in Denver, understood that, like, hey, if we want to win at the highest level, we need to build through the draft and we need to develop and we need to make, one or two well timed trades. And he built a great team. I mean, the team won the championship last year. Obviously, he left the year before, but he built that team. And so I know that part was bittersweet for him. But when he made that trade, I thought to myself, you know what? I respect the swing. It may not work out, but like I said, only one team can win. So when you're a small market team, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. And I just remember like Bill Simmons being so against the whole trade. And I was like, I get where you're coming from, but you know what the alternative is? What is Sam Presti doing in Oklahoma City? I mean, it's to be determined, but the last time he had a contender, he fucked it up straight up. I just don't think that you look at the Harden, Westbrook, Durant era and say that team should have had zero championships. They should have won one. So, he's got another chance now, but he's still holding on his chips. And, we'll see what he ends up doing. But it's like you can't just keep kicking the can down the road forever. So I think Tim Connolly with the Wolves was like, hey, this team isn't good enough. What can we do? Oh, we can get Rudy Gobert. Why not? So, we don't honestly know how much of him wanting to do that was his idea and how much was like the new owner saying, like, do something. But I still respect the shot because if you go back, to 2019, a lot of people thought Masai Ujiri was wrong for trading for Kawhi Leonard because he didn't want to resign there. But guess what? They won the championship. So that's what the sport's all about. So I think sometimes as a GM, you have to take risks and it might not work out, but it's better than just sitting on your hands and not doing anything.
Yeah, and I think for even in that framework in that reference for the Raptors, who the Nuggets just played last night, they're still a good team, even despite that loss all these years later. They haven't
Right.
found that like number one option guy since then necessarily, but they're still, I think, spitting distance from being a really good team in the East. And I think for the Jazz as well, maybe this iteration of Utah doesn't work out perfectly the way they want it to. But I think to your point, if you want to beat the if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. You kind of have to go through Denver anyway. And I still think they have some optionality going forward, having all three of those guys as assets. Not to I think there's a kind of consensus about who they would trade if they were to trade one of them, but the fact that you still can, I think, leaves them, they've got flexibility to change and move on if they want to sort of look a little bit different next year. Um,
Right.
and so getting to like OKC a little bit, I think they are in like a similar category of teams that are aiming to beat Denver specifically, and they're going about it a little bit differently, a little bit more long term, like maybe even to the point that are they trying to wait out the Denver Nuggets? I don't know. But while in that game last night, Denver consistently looked like the team that could sun whoever was matched up throughout, across all matchups. That Jamal Murray looked a little bit bigger and stronger than a lot of those guys. That Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, they have that adult weight to them. The Thunder aren't pushovers either. That they can kind of
No.
compete, and I don't know where this is. It could be scary. I'm not gonna lie. Who can they pay? I think is important. But when as long as you pay the right people, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to continue to build. And I think they have a lot of talent. Do I think they're gonna win this year? No, but they do have a lot of talent. I just feel like I respect the patience that they've been willing to have to this point. It's just a little bit of a tense moment for them, not just for the timeline on the basketball court, but I also think I was watching the game. Every time Josh Giddey got the ball, he got booed violently. Like, I don't know if that's the treatment he gets everywhere he goes, but if it is, that just feels like an elephant in the room for the team a little bit. And I don't know, it just feels a little apprehensive. You're kind of wondering like, where is this going? Is this a dynasty, or is this like like a combustible kind of a situation? I'm not sure.
That's a fascinating point because historically the Thunder have been such a tight-lipped organization that I have no idea once that whole story went public if Josh Giddey like addressed his teammates or if it was just like a everybody keeps to themselves, just keep playing basketball type deal. Because I mean, obviously there's guys like on the team he talks to, but if like he's friends with it or they ask him about it, I wonder if he like actually talked about it or if he was just like can't talk about it because even before that story came out, he was kind of viewed by a lot of outsiders as the guy that like I don't know if he fits there long term. So we'll see. But you know who they remind me of, Ray? Not like stylistically, but just timeline wise. They remind me of the 2018-19 Nuggets, like the team that won, the team after the game 82 game that ended up getting the 2 seed young team in the West. They beat the Spurs in 7 games in the first round, and then they had that long series with the Blazers where they lose in 7 in the second round. That's kind of where I think this Thunder team is. I think they're going to be right there all year. They're going to be a top 3 seed. I kind of think the top 3 are going to hold in some order. I think the Wolves, Nuggets, and Thunder will be the top 3 seeds. And OKC, I think they'll probably win that first round against whoever, most likely. I mean, if they get matched up with the Lakers, I could see LeBron like going pedal to the metal in that first round and getting it done. But like if they don't meet LeBron, I could definitely see them winning a round. And then, you know, after that, they are good enough to keep going. But what's interesting is you mentioned, are they going to upgrade? Historically, Presti just hasn't been a guy that's done that. Like he hasn't been a guy to upgrade in the middle of a season. And as much as I've criticized him over the years, I really can't fault him with this group because they've been better than expected. So I think what you kind of want to do is you kind of want to keep your powder dry and see how this team does in the playoffs. One for the experience, but then you can really see what you need. Because if you haven't had a playoff run yet, I think it's kind of hard to trade for like what you think you need. I mean, I know we all think they need like one more rotational big. I think everybody can see that. But I think they're also just kind of interested to see like, hey, let's trust our young guys and see what happens. And then he's got, I mean, he does have, I think Bertans, I don't remember if he's expiring or not, but I know they've got the Bertans contract. So they could make a move this year if they wanted to. If the price is right, he'll do it, but I just don't think he's going to be all that aggressive this year because he knows he doesn't have to be just yet. And then they'll probably take a swing over the summer.
Yeah, I could see it. It's really about who are you about to pay, and are you paying the right people? I think for both of those teams. Um, the Clippers are kind of in the Suns bucket for me. Not that obviously it's more apparent, but I think even more so than the Clippers. Even more so than the Suns. The Clippers have more depth on the back end, and with the from a similar angle, I think when you have as much as chemistry is a huge factor, um, the talent is the base for that chemistry, and I think they're showing that given some time, they can work themselves into a position that's pretty not dominant because obviously they're not the team we're all talking about, but I think they're in a good place in the sense that they're a team that's right there in a good, strong position that's not the team everyone's aiming for, but also you're not the team that everyone's thinking about. So, um, Bones Highland came on Curious Mike. That was fun. I don't know if you saw that. I thought it was interesting to
I
talk.
saw. I didn't listen to the episode.
Most of it was him, obviously those two reconnecting and him talking about the just kind of going back to the retelling the house fire story in detail and
Hmm.
how he's gone from how he's adjusting in Los Angeles and talking a little bit more about his comfort being. I mean, obviously he wants to play, but at the same time having who's in front of him, I think he's relatively understanding. He seems to like that city a lot. So I think they're a team that is like in a good spot as a whole. I don't see too many. Obviously it's health, I guess. The more I think about it, I'm like, okay, well they do have to stay healthy. That's so baked into the Los Angeles Clippers formula that I don't even think about it as like a
Right.
standout concept. Um,
Well, Ray, you know what's crazy is they got off to a rough start, but James Harden has really been like a stabilizer. I mean, we all know how good James Harden is, but it's just funny that like that's the word that comes to mind because like we've seen so many flameouts in his career, and obviously this story hasn't been fully written yet. There's still a long season to go, but they've really found a groove and found a solid hierarchy now that they've benched Westbrook. He's coming off the bench and he's not playing as much, which is good for them because it's like him being an energy guy, helps their bench, and then he's not playing too much, so it's like he's not shooting them out of games as much. And then their
mhm.
crunch time lineup of being able to have Harden with Kawhi, PG, Zubats, and Man usually is the fifth guy is like a pretty solid lineup. So yeah, the Clippers, they're dangerous. They're definitely good enough to get out of the West if everything goes right. I still think they're a little small. I mean, I know they got Plumlee coming back, but Zubats historically is not a guy that has given Jokic any problems, even though it seems like every time we watch Clippers Nuggets, the announcers love to say, oh, Zubac actually does a pretty decent job on Jokic. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like Jokic is doing whatever he wants, but I don't know. That's neither here or there. It seems like Kawhi is the guy that's like make or break for them. If he's on, they got a chance. The Nuggets can't really guard him, but it's a long season.
Another way I have them in that Suns bucket is that they have a center who like he's gonna do his best. And I
Right.
know that's not enough to stop Jokic necessarily, but there's a lot of teams out in the league right now who have guys who aren't even going to do their best, like who don't even have a best to give. So yeah, I do. I feel that they're
I'm
well-rounded
Ray.
team.
I'm personally more worried about a Wolves matchup for the Nuggets than a Clippers matchup. Even though Kawhi is one and they have PG and and Harden, who are like veterans. I just think the Wolves are tougher matchup. They're huge. Anthony Edwards he's coming. Like we couldn't guard him last year, and they have Naz Reid, who's like really good off the bench. That would give Zeke a lot of problems. And then Jaden McDaniels, they didn't have last year either. He's such a long defender that would really make Jamal work hard. So I don't want to see the Wolves in the playoffs. I'm really hoping that the Nuggets can get a top 2 seed, then the Wolves are the other top 2 seed, and that there's like two teams that have a chance to knock the Wolves off. I'm not saying we
Mhm.
can't beat the Wolves, but they are, I think, the worst matchup for the Nuggets, personally, as
I
of
wouldn't
today.
want an early Wolves matchup again. That wouldn't be ideal.
No.
The last thing I would want to say on the Clippers is that it's possible we owe James Harden an apology. I just feel like,
Oh, painful.
look, we're talking about Philadelphia, we're talking about Brooklyn. I feel like a lot of the time when a player doesn't work out in a particular place, the blame usually falls squarely on the player. And a lot of the
Right.
time, that's fair. Sometimes organizations are, for varying reasons, a little messy, a little discombobulated, a little disorganized, a little undeserving of that kind of benefit of the doubt. And if I have to think about two organizations who might not be deserving of the benefit of the doubt, I'm thinking about Philadelphia, and one of them is I'm thinking about Brooklyn, especially at that time. So
Oh yeah.
I'm
No,
just
that's fair
make
because I think that as much as I don't like James Harden, the Brooklyn thing was not his fault. That was Kyrie flaming that situation. That team was so good. They Harden pulls his hamstring, and then Durant's foot is on the line against the Bucks, and then the next year Kyrie doesn't get the vaccine, and Harden's like, "What the hell, bro? Like we're playing here without you." And he finally gets tired of it, and he tanks himself out of there, and he leaves. So I think a lot of people like clown him for like, "Dude, you wanted to go there, now you want it out," but it's like he wasn't going to publicly bash Kyrie ever. That wasn't going to happen. But we all know that was the reason. And then in Philadelphia, yeah, I mean, I don't really know everything that went wrong. It just seemed like I guess him and Embiid just like didn't click perfectly.
we
But
have a long history, I think, of just like from not just coaching, but like especially upper management and ownership snafus. Not just snafus. I'm being nice when I'm saying snafus. Like general stuff you shouldn't be seeing coming out of a team's upper management and
yeah,
ownership
no,
is
I
where I really
definitely, I
feel like
definitely do think Daryl Morey lied to James Harden. I don't think that James Harden has any benefit of about lying about Morey lying. I think Morey probably did promise him the bag and then thought, yeah, nah. You know what I'm saying? Like that totally
yeah.
strikes me as something Daryl Morey would do. So it's kind of like as much as we've dunked on Harden over the years, it's like Morey took complete advantage of this guy who has a bad reputation to just like fuck him over. So yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm owe James Harden an apology, but at least he's happy. Like he's in a situation now where like he knows that it's not tense. He's somewhere where he's wanted and he wants to be there. So good for him.
Um, last thing I would say about the Clippers. I hope they trade Bones to the Wizards.
I knew you had
Just
to get your
saying.
Wizards talk in.
Just it's not looking good right now in DC. They're also leaving DC probably.
Oh, I was about to say, so you did see that news? They're going to move to Virginia now, right?
Yeah, it's in Northern Virginia.
Which is funny because you wanted to move to Baltimore. Now they're moving even further away from Baltimore.
Well, I wouldn't want them. As if they're going to remain the Wizards, that's fine. They can stay in DC. They in Virginia. That's fine. I don't care. I just if they became the Bullets again, I might be down. Just saying. Um, and I just feel like Bones. If you put Bones in Jordan Poole's place, I just I know we've shat on Bones a lot, but I think they would be much happier. I think Bones would be happier, obviously, because he'd be playing. But I'd also think DC would have a much better, brighter, more interesting, more fun, less unhealthy and toxic future. Um, but yeah, I don't want to harp on DC and its issues right now. Um, Shout out to Congress. So the Sacramento Kings, they are really good.
They're fun. Don't play
Not too
much
much to say.
defense.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I just think that they're pretty much the same team as last year. I mean, I like watching them. I mean, Fox is electric. Monk's really fun off the bench. The bonus is really solid. They're just kind of small, which is going to, give them problems against the best teams in the West. Keegan Murray is playing better. He's kind of the guy that they need long term to be that guy, to really like take them to the next level. So I think it's another building year for them. They're going in the right direction, but I don't think they're a threat. Like they're going to have some nice wins this year. Maybe they will win a playoff round, but I think best case scenario for them is they're going to be in that 4-5 slot. So if they can get there, depending on the matchup, maybe they can win. But I'd be absolutely shocked if the Kings made it to the conference finals. I don't think they have that kind of team.
I think they'd be a good challenge for some probably better team. Um, Dallas, kind of a similar position. They don't play a lot of defense. Do they even deserve to be called Dallas? I'm gonna call them the Alice Mavericks. Luke is good. He's still good. He's
He
always
is.
impressive. I am always amazed at the things he does on the court every single game he plays, even though they may not be winning that game. Um,
Yeah.
it's they're
So
in a tough spot.
I was thinking about something earlier today, actually, about Luca and the Mavs, and I was thinking how I was just like shooting the breeze the other day at work with some guys in the break room, casual basketball fans. I was like, "Who do you think's the best player in the league?" And one guy said Luka Doncic. I was like, "Really? You think Luka's the best player in the league?" He's like, "Yeah, who's playing better right now?" And I'd say like Jokic and Embiid, and he's like, "Well, Luka has the best numbers." And I was like, when you watch Luka Doncic play, it is absolutely breathtaking. Like he is incredible, but I think the thing that casual basketball fans don't completely understand when you watch hours and hours of basketball, you see that Jokic doesn't care about putting up numbers, right? Like he just ends up putting up numbers because that's what happens during the course of the game. But the other night against the Mavs, he had like 9 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, or whatever. He still dominated the game. Like they doubled him every single time, and he made the right play every single time. And like, let's be honest, in Luca's defense, Jokic does have a better team around him than Luca does. But Luca so often like takes it upon himself to do everything. And I think he likes doing that. I'm pretty sure we've talked to Miroslav about this. I'm pretty sure like that's what Miroslav says is like, yeah, Luca's European, but he doesn't really play European style. And it's true. He plays like LeBron. He plays like an AAU style. Break everybody down. He's still an unbelievable passer, but it's like his style is more conducive to putting up numbers than it is to like getting everybody involved, making the right play every time, and winning basketball games. And they're off to a good start, but they've had a pretty soft schedule. I just don't take them seriously. Like Luca is so good that they could win a round, but I'd be shocked if they made the conference finals. I mean, they made it a few years ago, but I saw a crazy stat. Like, I don't think they have like many players left from that team. It's pretty much like Luca and Dwight Powell, because they traded Finney
Yeah,
Smith. Well, I guess Hardaway's still there, but they just, they don't have the same defenders that that team had, and I just don't take them seriously. Like to me, they're similar to the Kings, where it's like they can score a lot, but if you don't have at least like a top 20 defense, you really don't have a chance to like advance in the playoffs.
yeah. I was gonna say it's tough. They're in a tough position, I think, because they're a team that they went through a rebuild and they were able to find that number one guy. But I think they spent a lot of assets to get him, and I think missed enough
Right.
throughout the whole Kristaps process that they don't really have the assets, I think, to assemble the kind of team that they really need to win games. I could see the formula winning,
Right.
but I think I see it in the same way that I kind of see the Nuggets bench, like from a stylistic perspective, that if you had this one guy who can do everything for you and is happy to do everything for you, well, your best bet is probably surround him with like 2 through 5, a bunch of guys who maybe they aren't the best scorers, or maybe they aren't, maybe they don't all fill out all the roles offensively, but they're great defenders and they kind of make up for the hustle and make his life easier and do all the little things for him. I think that is kind of the route they need for success, and it's tough to do that with the limited amount of like money and draft capital that they do have already, and time. Honestly, again, every year that we kind of do this sort of back and forth about Dallas and their future and their contendership or not, and they lose a little bit more time. And I think the notion that Luka is going to stay in Dallas forever becomes a little bit more questionable, you know.
Hmm.
Not to say that I'm doing that today. Oh, Luka is going to leave. He's going
Right.
to ask out next week. It's just every year. It's just I'm a little bit more curious than the last. Uh,
Right. For sure.
so anyone I guess Kyrie is doing okay. He's been under the radar for a season, which I think is like good for Kyrie.
Right. He's been out of the news.
Like, yeah.
He's
I
been
mean,
on
you
his
think
best
about
behavior.
all the headlines in the NBA. You got Draymond, you got Miles Bridges, you got um, Josh Giddey.
Josh
Kyrie,
Giddey. Yeah.
nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found in the news. I
Zion.
think that's
Yeah.
sure, but nothing really to say or do about Kyrie. So that's nice. I good for him. I'm gonna let you take this one. New Orleans, how you feel?
They've been playing better lately. I think they won 4 in a row, and then they blew a game to the Grizzlies. Jaw's first game back. Jaw was incredible, 34 points, hit the game-winning floater. And I just think that the it's such a bummer about the Pelicans, Ray, because they've done such a good job drafting. They have incredible role players all over the place, but Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are their two best players, and they're just not quite good enough. Ingram is really good, but on a championship type team, he's like your second best guy, maybe third best. And Zion has the talent. He's more talented than Brandon Ingram, but he just, everybody can see it. He's just out of shape, and he's killing them. Like, he has good games. He's still capable. He's so talented. Charles Barkley said this the other night. It's like, he's so talented. This is not a team you wouldn't want to play if he ever figures it out. But unfortunately, right now, it's looking like he's letting them down. And I'm not giving up hope, but I'm not as optimistic now as I was preseason. They don't have a bad record, but it's like, if Zion's not going to be in shape, this team's never going to get over the hump. So, I mean, he's been in the league for what? This is year 4. If he hasn't figured it out by now, like, he's kind of running out of time. So let's hope he can figure it out. But if Zion doesn't take things more seriously this season, I think they have some major questions to ask themselves in the offseason, because they also have so many young guys that like need to get paid. Like, Trey Murphy is really good. The fact that he doesn't start just like shows you what a good job they've done drafting. Because they got Herb Jones. They already gave him a contract. He got a pretty fair deal. Valanciunas is quietly having a really good season for them.
He's so good.
They've got a good they've got a good front line. And then McCollum, when he's playing, he's been CJ McCollum, just below all-star level, not gonna like throw a bunch of highlights up there and wow you, but just solid, hits threes, runs solid offense. And they've got good pieces. I love Dyson Daniels. He's a really good defender. He's kind of like their version of like Peyton Watson, this tall, lanky, athletic guy. And then I mean, the Pelicans, like, they can beat anybody. When they're on, like, they're really fun to watch. But Zion just he doesn't rebound. That's the other weird thing. Like, for as athletic as he is, he's just so bad at rebounding and defense that I don't think that's something you'd really overcome. Because if it's this much of a problem in the regular season, teams are just going to keep picking on him in the playoffs. So it sucks because he's their most talented guy, but his flaws are just so glaring when it comes to like winning at the highest level that I don't know how they figured that
Something just kind of popped in my mind. Brandon Ingram and Zion for Luca.
out. I don't think either team would do that. I mean, maybe the Pelicans would, but no,
You
Dallas
might
wouldn't do
have
that.
maybe throw in a little few role players here and there, little draft capital.
Jeez. So then you have like Kyrie with Zion and Ingram in
Kyrie.
Dallas.
Yeah,
That'd be
I think
weird.
that would be. They'd be fine still. They're
I mean,
not great now. I don't know.
I kind of get what you're cooking up, but at the same time, like if Luca ever leaves Dallas, I don't see him going to like a smaller city.
Dude,
He'll go to
New
like
Orleans.
LA or Miami.
New Orleans would love Luca though. I just feel like it would hit. Like it would I feel like the Saints aren't that good right now. Like
Oh my god.
CJ, you got Val, you got Luke. I think it's a good trio. I don't know. They've got a lot of role players, like you're saying. Luca needs those role players. I'm just saying, just putting it out, maybe
That's a funny
just putting it
idea.
out there. You don't have to credit me, and NBA GMs when this trade happens, but just remember, who told you. You want to take Los Angeles? The other Los Angeles? I love describing them as the other
Oh
Los
man.
Angeles.
You know, we got to wrap up soon. So I don't have a whole lot to say about the
You can
Lakers.
say
What I'll
little if you
say
need
is
to.
like, look, they've hit a rough patch. LeBron is still incredible this year. Davis has been Davis. He's been really good some games, disappeared others. Their real players have been fine, kind of underwhelming. Austin Reeves has been a little underwhelming, but ever since they moved him to the bench, things have gone better. I think that what sucks about the Lakers, like from a Nuggets fan perspective, is I thought they'd be a little bit better right now, which would like make them think that they're good enough. I think they've been bad enough to where they know they need to make a change. So I don't have a lot to say about the Lakers because I'm very confident that this will not be their same team after the deadline. I think the Rui and the D'Lo contracts were signed like with the intention of like, hey, these are pieces we can move if we need to. I don't know who they are going to acquire. Are they gonna try to get Zach LaVine or DeRozan? Do they hope things go south in Dallas and get Kyrie? Like, I don't exactly know what the plan is. I just know that I think even internally, LeBron's probably having conversations with Pelinka, like, hey, we're working things out. I trust this guy. I don't trust this guy. What's available? Because I want to make a run out of this year. This is my last year here. I don't think we're quite good enough, but we need to make an upgrade. So it's incomplete. They're around, they're hanging around, but I don't think this Lakers team is good enough to make a run. I think they're going to have to add somebody.
Do you think LeBron is thinking about? I mean, I'm sure he's thinking about his tenure as a Laker right now at this moment, but at the end of the season, do you feel like he's heading for alternative pastures?
I honestly don't know what to expect. I mean, I think he's going to have all the leverage because he's going to be a free agent, right?
He always
But
has.
yeah, his son just started playing for USC. He's coming off the bench. And barring some like crazy comeuppance, I don't really think Bronny's going to leave USC after his freshman year. I think he's going to come back. So if he comes back to have like a better sophomore season, I think LeBron is just going to want to stay home in LA. And, it's not that he doesn't want to win. He's still going to like the Lakers are still going to try to be competitive, but I don't see him going to a different team to ring hunt and then like leave his family / move his family. I just don't think that that's something he wants to do. It could be wrong, but I think, LeBron already said like 2-3 years ago, I'm the GOAT. So if he already thinks that, then I don't feel like he's going to like change his mind, go chase a ring somewhere because that would be kind of like kind of make him look hypocritical a little bit, don't you think?
I mean, people already hate Kevin Durant for it, so I get it. Um, I'm just
Like, do you think he's
interested.
going to leave? Like, what's your idea? Like, where would he go? Would he go to a team like to get them over the hump or something?
Well, obviously he's spoken about wanting to play with his son, so that's. I mean,
Right.
I've just thought a lot about like who would want to draft him and why and how and if you have, I think it's very attractive for I think a team that has superfluous draft capital, looking like OKC
Oh,
maybe.
so
Like, is it
is your
like
are you having like a mini conspiracy here where you think even if Bronny isn't ready, he'll just come out because a team knows if they take him that they'll get LeBron as part of the package?
I would if I'm Sam Presti and I've got all these draft picks and I literally don't know what to do with them and they're falling out of my pockets, like why would I not spend a first round pick on Bronny James? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Oh no, Ray. No. Because
come
remember
on.
he did that weird thing at the All-Star game last year where he praised Sam Presti. So what if Presti's like, fuck it, I got a million picks. I'm a draft Bronny. LeBron goes to OKC next year to join that team.
I'm just
Oh
saying.
no, that would be horrible. But would
I'm
LeBron
just
really
saying.
live in Oklahoma City for a year?
He wouldn't even live there. He just fight it out. I don't know.
He would
Somewhere.
just, yeah. Didn't he like fly in like an hour before the All Star game at Salt Lake City? And then like, I remember Windhorse was making fun of him because he's like, yeah, I love everybody. He's like, dude, you were there for 6 hours.
Hey, I can't really comment on Salt Lake City or their drying lake or anything about that.
That's fair.
So it's just something I think about, as this situation unfolds.
I hate that you put that idea in my head now.
I can see a return to the
Presti must be
Heat
stopped.
if he wanted to, like, just do a one and one somewhere. The Heat are always a destination that is always doing crazy things and always moving people, and he has that
Hmm.
relationship there. So Cleveland is always an option. I think it's home. So Cleveland, they're trying to get over that hump. Another run at like maybe a ring for Cleveland would do a lot for him. But yeah, I don't think he's gonna run to like Dallas or something just because. Although that would be crazy too. Anyway, I don't want to speculate on that too long. Um, and then we kind of get to the Memphis, the Golden States, the Portlands, the San Antonios. Do you have any bottom feeder West conversation thoughts about those teams?
Um, I think it's not really surprising that Portland and San Antonio are bad. I mean, he's putting up numbers. He's not like, well, I can't say he's not a winning player yet, but he's like he's a rookie. He's like a really good rookie. The Blazers. I think Sharp has been a nice surprise. I think Scoot has definitely been a disappointment, but he's been playing a little better lately. It's early. We didn't really talk about the Rockets. I mean, the Rockets are like a weird team, right? Because they were bad for a few years. Sengun has like really come on the scene this year, and they added some vets with Jeff Green and with Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks, and they've really helped them. But the Rockets have been like really good at home and really bad on the road. So I don't think anybody's worried about them like being a contender. Maybe they'll be a pain in the ass for somebody, but I guess the one team that's interesting down here, Ray, is the Grizzlies. They've been so bad because Ja was out. Now he's back. Is there going to be enough time for them to make a run? I think they're 6 games out of the
No,
play-in,
no,
so it's not impossible.
no,
You're not seeing it.
no. Look, the West
Okay.
is if you talk about the Eastern Conference where they maybe should be. Yeah, sure, but the West is so good. I, I understand that they can be a lot better than they are right now, but
They're six and a half out, six
imagining
in the loss
them,
column behind Phoenix. Yeah.
and that's Phoenix. Like Phoenix is, we've talked about it before. Phoenix has a lot of
Right.
room for improvement. Honestly, um, maybe the Rockets
Yeah.
could fall. I could see that, but the Lakers, I think they have a lot of room for improvement.
Maybe.
I think the Pelicans have a lot of room for improvement. I mean, to the extent that
Yeah.
like as you say, like Zion can lock in and be more consistent physically. Um, so I have a hard time seeing them without, to the extent that they could, I have a hard time seeing them doing a lot in the playoffs just because that's basically saying it's December 21st. It's playoff mode right now
Right.
with
Yeah.
40, 50,
No, that's
50
true. They
some
got a
games
lot. They
left.
got their
Like,
work cut out for them.
and then you're going to get to that
And they're
finish line and
yeah.
have to run the
I
sprint
mean,
of the playoffs.
Bain and Jackson have been pretty good. The rest of their guys have been kind of disappointing, like their draft picks. I mean, Zaire Williams has been kind of a bust. It's a bummer. David Roddy, a lot of people liked him initially, but he's kind of struggling. Um, so we've gone over the West.
Hmm.
As we get out of here, let's end on this. Just sort of what are you looking for from the Nuggets, like in this next sort of 5 to 10 games? We got 2 games left on the road here, Brooklyn and Charlotte, and then Christmas Day game against the Warriors. Like Jamal's back, the team's healthy, KCP's back. Do you think this is like the time now where the Nuggets are about to get in a groove?
I I think so. I think they'll win more games than they have, a higher clip than they have recently. What I
Okay,
look for the rest of the season for the Denver Nuggets right now, for me, it's mainly just honing in on their offensive process. It's
sure.
I know the defense is going to be there. I have I'm really confident in that. I'm really confident that they have that capacity and that Michael Malone is going to continue to reiterate. Like the Nuggets could score 7 points in a game, and Michael Malone could get on this podium and be like, if they just played a little bit more defense, they might get some fast break opportunities. So uh,
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that can harm them in my mind. When if I imagine them losing a playoff series, it's a playoff series where they get away from their own identity. Sorry. It's a playoff series where I feel like they get away from their own identity as an offensive unit, and that leads to a lot of, again, we talked about this, frustrations for Jokic, turnovers offensively that kind of compromise their defense, these sorts of things. If they can cut those things out, it's going to look real easy for them for the rest of the for the rest of the regular season, and I think they can really get in a groove, as you say, to like get to that. I know I said 70 wins earlier in the season, and that is very unlikely right now. They are very up against that threshold, but
They're not going to go 51-2 the rest of the year.
it's possible.
Oh my
Statistically
god.
speaking, statistically speaking, there is a greater than 0.0 chance that they do that, but I think what is more
I mean,
likely
they
that
got to
they
go
end up.
40-12 just to win 60 games, so that'd be cool if they did that.
Yeah, I think my like new target right now would be target, and it's like what they should aim for, strive for, that kind of thing. Is like around that 60 win mark. I think that would be really satisfying.
So
But breaking that 57 win threshold would be, I think,
yeah, so 38 and
healthy.
14, that's doable.
Yeah.
Doable. Yeah.
They should be the best team, the best Nuggets team there's ever been. Like, there's no reason that a Nuggets team led by
Yeah.
Danilo Gallinari and Wilson Chandler and Ty Lawson is better than this team. Aaron Gordon is better than all three of those players. Uh, so they should do it, I think. But I I hope Jamal just stays consistent is probably the other
Yeah.
one. I know he's had like a rough, I don't want to say rough, but I was hoping more for more consistency out of
More of
him
a breakout, yeah.
through the first few months. But if he's playing himself into shape, okay, well, we've had some time. You're back healthy. Let's see you play yourself into deeper and deeper good shape over time. I think that would be great to see.
One last thing about Malone, I thought it was funny how you said he likes to harp on the defense. Isn't it funny how his mood is like so different depending on like the type of game more than necessarily the outcome? Like if the Nuggets win 125-118, he'll take it and he'll be like, "Hey, it's all right, but we need to be a lot better." if they lose, he's like super mad about the defense. But then if they win like 94-89, and we're like, us fans were like, oh, what an ugly game. That's when Malone's like really excited. He's like, oh
He's
man,
into it.
great defense. Yeah. I'm like, dude, you are
Yeah.
so old school.
Which I don't have a problem with, like being good at defense. That's not, it's not an
No.
issue. It's just a balance thing.
Yeah.
Basketball is a two-sided sport, and honestly, offense is where I feel like they have the most room to grow, which is crazy. I know that seems unreasonable, but I just think there's a level or two in that team offensively that I think they just haven't accessed yet.
Well, here's my analysis though of like why he does that and why he gets mad at the high scoring wins more than like the low scoring wins.
Mhm.
And this is human nature, but like I think there's some teams where Jokic and Murray go, oh, these guys can't stop us at all, and it's just like they're scoring right, left, right, layup after layup. And human nature is like you're gonna take the foot off the gas a little bit on defense if you know you can just score whenever you want. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes the Nuggets do get into those kind of games where they're not going as hard as they can on defense and they still win, and it pisses Malone off because he knows it's like bad habits for playoff time.
Yeah, no, I think I feel like it happens on both sides. Like they not only do
Yeah,
they not play great defense, but also I think their offense gets, when they do feel, it feels like complacency sometimes that like, oh, we're champions and oh, we have the better team, so we can just ISO ourselves through the
yeah,
rest of the game. And that's when I'm like, y'all are built to not be doing this. Like, so, and obviously Jokic is always on that level where he's always playing the right way and willing to do that and comfortable doing that. And it's easy when that happens. So why not just make the game easy on both
right.
sides? Play good defense, play sound, team oriented offense, and everybody's going to eat. Everybody's going to get points. Everybody's going to get assists. Everybody's going to shoot 60, 70, 80% from the field. Like it's going to be easy. Um, and I think it's just when they get away from that's when they struggle. But yeah, it's good to hear from you as always. Um, let's see other things in my life. I don't know if you guys know this. I bowl a lot. It is my bowling night tonight, Thursday, December 21st.
Hey.
I am Professional Bowlers Association eligible. Um,
Oh.
so that should be interesting if I can jump into that. Um,
Best
you
bowler with a
have
Nuggets podcast in the world.
best bowler with a Nuggets pot, best bowler in the Nuggets community. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if somebody
Come at
else
me.
likes to bowl. You want to come at me? Yeah, sure. It's fine.
Bowl game strong.
Um, may I don't know. I'll drop
I
some.
heard your cookie bake game is pretty good too.
My cookie game is I do feel like it's pretty strong. Um,
What's better, your cookie game or your bread game?
the cookies are better.
Okay.
I mean, my bread game is very strong as well, but my cookies are perfected. Like I
All
don't feel like I have any more room to grow in my cookie game.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you may see some cookie bowling and or blended content in the future. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah,
Maybe we'll
this has been
review
for.
cookies live on the show one day.
Yeah, maybe I can send you some, and you can compare to some local cookie places or something like that. We'll see. I'm sure New Orleans has good cookies as well. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, um, I don't do beignets.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna try. So
All right.
it's gonna have to be what it is, and let them have that. This has been
Suit
Four
yourself.
Corners, episode 105. We appreciate you for making this far. As always, you can find me online at Ravon Hackshaw and Peter at Bucketsons88. Um, if you want to try some of my baked goods, you can shoot me a DM. I don't know. I'll make you some. It's cool. Whatever. Yeah. So thanks, and as always, go Nuggets, and I'll see you next time. Boom. Oh, you can pause the